In 1951, a young black woman named Henrietta Lacks walked into Johns Hopkins Hospital seeking treatment and unknowingly changed the course of medical history. Without her consent, doctors took her cells and discovered something extraordinary. They didn't die. Instead, they kept multiplying endlessly. Those cells, known today as HeLa cells, became the foundation for countless medical breakthroughs, from vaccines to cancer research. In this video, we're uncovering the incredible and controversial story of Henrietta Lacks, the cells that wouldn't die, how one woman's legacy lives on in every corner of modern medicine, and the ethical questions her story still raises today. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell, because some of the most groundbreaking stories in science are also the most human. Who was Henrietta Lacks? Henrietta Lacks was a 31-year-old tobacco farmer and mother of 5 living in Baltimore, Maryland. She was vibrant, full of life, and loved dancing. But in early 1951, she felt something was wrong. She had severe bleeding and pain that wouldn't go away. When she finally went to Johns Hopkins, one of the few hospitals that treated black patients at the time, doctors discovered a massive tumor on her cervix. It was aggressive cervical cancer. The doctors took a sample of her tumor cells during treatment. This was standard practice back then, and patients were never asked for permission. It was just what hospitals did. Henrietta underwent radium treatments, a brutal form of radiation therapy. Despite the treatment, the cancer spread rapidly throughout her body. Just 8 months after her diagnosis, on October 4, 1951, Henrietta Lacks died. She was buried in an unmarked grave in a family cemetery in Virginia. Her family grieved, tried to move on, and had no idea that Henrietta was about to become immortal in a way no one could have imagined. The cells that refused to die. Here's where the story gets extraordinary. The cells taken from Henrietta's tumor were sent to Dr. George Gay, a researcher who had been trying for years to keep human cells alive in a lab. Every sample he'd ever received died within days. But Henrietta's cells were different. They were unlike anything science had ever seen. They doubled every 20 to 24 hours. They didn't just survive, they thrived. They multiplied at an incredible rate and seemed to be immortal. Scientists called them HeLa cells, using the first 2 letters of her first and last names. Dr. J realized what he had and started sharing these cells with researchers around the world, for free at first. Within years, HeLa cells were being mass-produced and shipped to laboratories everywhere. A factory was even set up to grow them. Scientists could finally conduct experiments that were impossible before. They could test drugs, study viruses, and understand how human cells worked at a level never before possible. And they did all of this without the Lacks family having any clue that Henrietta's cells were still alive, multiplying in labs across the globe. Stolen without permission. Let's be clear about what happened here. Henrietta Lacks never gave permission for her cells to be taken, studied, or sold. In 1951, informed consent wasn't really a thing, especially for black patients in a segregated hospital system. Doctors could take tissue samples without asking, and they did. But what makes this case different is what happened after. Even as HeLa cells became the foundation of modern medicine, even as companies made billions selling them, Henrietta's family remained completely in the dark. They didn't find out until 1973, more than 20 years after her death, when scientists contacted them asking for blood samples to help with research. That's when the family learned that Henrietta's cells were still alive. They were confused, hurt, and angry. How could their mother's cells be in labs everywhere without anyone telling them? How could companies profit while they couldn't even afford health insurance? The family felt violated. Henrietta's cells had been taken from her body without consent, and now they were being used without her family's knowledge or compensation. It raised huge questions about who owns your body, your cells, your DNA. If someone uses your biological material to make medical breakthroughs or money, don't you deserve to know? Don't you deserve a say? How HeLa cells changed medicine. The impact of HeLa cells on medicine is almost impossible to overstate. They've been used in tens of thousands of studies and have contributed to some of the most important medical breakthroughs of the last 70 years. Let's start with the polio vaccine. In the 1950s, polio was terrorizing families around the world, leaving thousands of children paralyzed. Dr. Jonas Salk needed a way to test his vaccine, and HeLa cells provided the perfect solution. They allowed him to grow massive amounts of polio virus safely in a lab. The vaccine worked and polio was virtually eliminated in many countries. HeLa cells saved countless lives right there. But that was just the beginning. HeLa cells helped scientists understand cancer, AIDS, and the effects of radiation. They were sent into space to see how human cells react to zero gravity. They've been used to test countless drugs and treatments. They help develop in vitro fertilization, gene mapping, and cloning. When COVID-19 hit, researchers used HeLa cells to study the virus and test treatments. Today, if you've been vaccinated, taken medication, or benefited from any modern medical treatment, there's a good chance HeLa cells played a role in making it possible. More than 50 million metric tons of HeLa cells have been grown since 1951. These cells have been involved in more than 110,000 scientific publications. They contributed to 11 Nobel Prizes. The medical industry built on Henrietta's cells is worth billions, and through it all, her family saw nothing. What justice looks like today. For decades, the Lacks family fought to be heard, to be recognized, and to have some control over what was being done with Henrietta's cells. They weren't asking to stop science. They understood the good that HeLa cells had done. But they wanted acknowledgement. They wanted respect. They wanted some say in how their mother's legacy was used. The family's fight brought attention to bigger issues of medical ethics, informed consent, and racial inequality in healthcare. In 2013, the National Institutes of Health reached an agreement with the Lacks family. It gave them some control over how HeLa cells are used in research. Scientists now need permission from a panel that includes family members before they can access HeLa genome data. It's not perfect, but it was a start. Then, in 2023, more than 70 years after Henrietta's death, the family reached a settlement with a biotech company that had been using HeLa cells for commercial purposes. The terms are confidential, but it marked the first time the family received financial compensation for the use of Henrietta's cells. Today, Henrietta Lacks is finally getting the recognition she deserves. Books have been written about her. A movie told her story. Medical schools teach about her and the ethical issues her case raised. She's become a symbol of the need for informed consent and respect in medical research. But her story also reminds us of a painful truth, that for too long, Black bodies were used by medicine without consent, without compensation, and without dignity. Henrietta's story isn't just about one woman. It's about how science has treated marginalized communities and what we owe to those who contributed to medical progress, whether they chose to or not. Henrietta Lacks never knew the impact her cells would have, but her story reminds us that behind every discovery lies a person, a family, and a truth that must be honored. What part of Henrietta's story moved you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how her legacy resonates with you. If you found this story powerful, hit like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who values history, ethics, and human resilience. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and never forget the people whose stories built the future.